Hello everyone. Today's presentation will be on fertilizer application, best practices for optimal plant growth. We will tackle understanding techniques, types of fertilizer application, and the benefits of fertilizer application. To begin with, we will look at introduction to fertilizer. What is fertilizer? Fertilizer is any substance applied to soil or plants to supply essential nutrients. Fertilizers enhance plant growth, improve crop yield, and maintain soil fertility. There are two types of fertilizers. They are organic fertilizers and inorganic fertilizers. Types of fertilizers. Organic fertilizers include compost, manure, and bone meal. This seeks to imply that organic fertilizers are gotten from natural sources. So you can get your organic fertilizers from plants, you can get it from animals, or any other natural source you can come up with. Benefits of organic fertilizers. Organic fertilizers improve soil structure. They enhance microbial activity as well. Inorganic fertilizers. These include urea, ammonium nitrate, superphosphates, and many more. So, in opposition to organic fertilizers, inorganic fertilizers are gotten from artificial sources. That is to say, they are man-made. You can produce them in a laboratory or anywhere else. Basically, you do not get them from natural sources. So anything artificial, which is a fertilizer, is an inorganic fertilizer. Benefits of inorganic fertilizers: they provide precise nutrient ratios and they provide immediate availability. Key nutrients in fertilizers. Essential nutrients for plant growth include the primary nutrients, which are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen promotes leafy growth, phosphorus encourages root development, and potassium enhances disease resistance and fruit quality. We also have secondary nutrients, which include calcium, magnesium, sulfur, and micronutrients such as iron, manganese, and zinc. Understanding NPK ratio. NPK ratios explained. Now, NPK ratio indicates the percentage of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium respectively in fertilizer. Examples include 10 to 10 to 10 or 20 to 10 to 10. That's to say, for the former, a ratio of 10 for nitrogen, 10 for phosphorus, and 10 for potassium. And for the latter, a ratio of 20 for nitrogen, 10 for phosphorus, and 10 for potassium. You would notice that we mentioned in the previous slide about inorganic fertilizers that they give a definite ratio of nutrients. This is an example of such ratios, the NPK fertilizer. Now, application, you choose ratios based on plant needs and soil conditions. So depending on the needs of your plant, if it needs more nitrogen as compared to the other two, you choose the 20 to 10 to 10. And if it needs equal amounts of all of these three, then you choose the 10 to 10 to 10. Application methods. Methods of fertilizer application. These include broadcasting, that is spreading fertilizer evenly over the soil, banding, applying fertilizer in bands near the plant, foliar feeding, which is spraying fertilizer solution on plant leaves, and side dressing, which is adding fertilizer beside growing plants. When do we apply fertilizers? The timing differs depending on the type of crop you are growing or the type of fertilizer you are using. Now we have application during the growing season, that is applying during the active growth period. You can also apply your fertilizer before planting, that is the pre-planting stage, which is incorporating fertilizer into the soil before planting, and the post-planting stage, which is the follow-up application of fertilizer as plants grow. Dosage and safety. Dosage and safety consideration. Dosage follows recommended rates of the fertilizer label. So depending on the type of fertilizer as aforementioned, you will know the dosage to apply. So you basically read the label on the fertilizer to know the amount of fertilizer to apply to a particular crop. And when we come to safety, we look at both the safety of the individual applying the fertilizer, that's the farmer, and the safety of the crop. Now for the farmer, we will look at you using safety clothing or protective clothing, which includes gloves, mask, and other protective wear, overall, Wellington boots, and the rest. And for plants, we have the safety of avoiding over application, since it could lead to withering of the plant. That is to say, when so much fertilizer is applied around the plants, the fertilizer tends to extract water from the plant in order to neutralize it or be able to dissolve it evenly and distribute it about the soil. So over application would lead to this condition, which is withering of the plant, where it loses water, dries up, and dies. Benefits of proper fertilizer use. Benefits include increased crop yield, higher quality and quantity of produce, soil health, which is maintains or improves the soil fertility, and environmental impact, which is it reduces the risk of nutrient runoff, which will be explained later on in the presentation. Common mistakes to avoid. Over-fertilization is one of the common mistakes a farmer should avoid when applying fertilizer, since it can harm the plants and pollute water bodies. In the previous slide, we spoke about runoff of nutrients. Now, this happens when it rains or when water is applied to the soil in excess. So the water ends up flowing off the top of the soil or flowing from the soil to from the expected place to other parts of the soil where it might not be needed. So that is the runoff of nutrients. So when too much water is applied to the soil or to the plants, the fertilizer could end up moving, since it dilutes in the water. These nutrients may end up moving from their expected location to different locations where they might not necessarily be needed. Now, improper timing is also another mistake to avoid. Incorrect application times can reduce the effectiveness of the fertilizer. So as mentioned before, depending on the type of fertilizer and the type of plant you are growing, you know whether to add the fertilizer before, during, or after planting. So when you do not follow the instructions given on the label as to when to apply the fertilizer, you could eventually cause low crop yield and other negative impacts to your crops and soil. So we now move on to soil testing and analysis. Importance of soil testing. Why test soil? We test soil so we can determine the nutrient level and the pH of the soil. So when you test your soil, you're able to determine which nutrient is lacking, which nutrient is in excess, or which fertilizer to apply based on the values and statistics you get from evaluating the soil components. You also get to know the pH of the soil, so you know how acidic or basic your fertilizer should be. Sustainable practices. So for sustainable fertilizer practices, we are looking at things that you can do which would last you a while or a longer time as compared to others. And these include the use of organic fertilizers. Since they are much more accessible, you can get them from almost right about any natural source. Yes, so use of organic fertilizers, one, reduces environmental impact. Since these fertilizers are organic, they are less likely to cause any kind of negative impacts on the environment. So these are more sustainable fertilizers to use. And we also have the integrated nutrient management, which combines organic and inorganic methods. So although we said initially that organic fertilizers are much more sustainable, it does not rule out the fact that inorganic fertilizers are also important. So you can have the integrated nutrient management method of sustainable fertilizer practices, which would also increase your plant yield, since inorganic fertilizers are able to provide nutrients in their needed proportions to plants as compared to organic fertilizers. Now we also have the efficient use of fertilizer. Apply fertilizer based on soil needs and avoid runoff. Image ideas. You can have eco-friendly farming practices or organic fertilizers. Future trends in fertilizer technology. Advances in fertilizer technology include slow release fertilizers, that's the gradual nutrient release. You can have precision agriculture, which is data-driven fertilizer application. We can also have biological fertilizers, which is the use of beneficial microorganisms. So this brings us to the end of today's presentation. I hope we've all gathered one or two things, whether new information or a build up on information that you already have. And we hope to see you next time on our next presentation. Thank you.